it's Quana back again with another review. Hope you guys are doing awesome. So today I'm here to review 2024's Twisters. This is the long-awaited sequel to the 1996 blockbuster hit. That film starred Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt. This film stars Daisy Edgar Jones, Glen Powell, and Anthony Ramos. And much like the original, it follows a team of storm chasers out in Oklahoma who are trying to find a way to gain more information about tornadoes and, more importantly, trying to figure out how to stop them from terrorizing the people of Tornado Valley. This was one of my most anticipated films of the summer, and I was so grateful to get an opportunity to go see an early screening of this movie. The original film is one of my all-time favorite kind of like storm disaster movies of all time. My parents literally watched this movie on repeat. It was one of our comfort movies growing up. There are so many quotables that I remember to this day about that original movie, and that movie had a packed cast. Okay, you had Philip Seymour Hoffman in that movie. You had Carrie Elways in that movie, Lois Smith in that movie, Alan Ruck in that movie. I mean, that movie had so many memorable moments. We got cows, and asking Aunt Meg, where did you get all this beef from? Have you seen my cows out in the yard? No. Just so many memorable moments, and that cast and the chemistry of that cast was absolutely phenomenal. This movie tries to hit all of the original plot beats of that movie. You have a storm chaser who gives up the profession in order to have a more safe existence as a big city meteorologist. They are brought back to Oklahoma for one last time to storm chase, to help rescue and save the poor people of Oklahoma. And in doing so, they reignite their passion for chasing storms. They reunite with the people who were part of their community, and they save the day. And we're going to throw in some comedy, and we're going to throw in some romance. And that is basically the premise of this movie. More importantly, more specifically, this movie follows Daisy Edgar Jones's character, Kate, who loses some loved ones, much like the original in Helen Hunt, to the storms. More specifically, this movie follows the lead, Daisy Edgar Jones's character, Kate, as she returns back home to Oklahoma and reunites with her storm chasing pal, played by Anthony Ramos, and ends up getting entangled with the lead, Tyler, played by Glen Powell. This is the year of Glen Powell. He is in everything this year. There's also a performance by Sasha Lane. There's Mara Tierney in there. Got good bones, this movie. The special effects were great. A lot of people think that the 96 effects are a little cheesy and hammy looking. I still think they stand the test of time, but certainly the effects here are much more improved. Some of the storms are bigger, but because I am familiar with the original, I was waiting for that moment of wow, and I don't think I got that. I also don't think the chemistry was there between the actors in the way that it felt very authentic in the original movie. And I think part of that goes to just the story beats of the original movie. The original movie, you had Helen Hunt's character who was reuniting with Bill Paxton's character. So there was a built-in understanding that these two people had a romance and had chemistry, and their on-screen chemistry was phenomenal. Even as a 14-year-old girl at the time of watching that movie, I could feel it. You also had the lore around that movie, the fact that there was a showing of the movie at a drive-in theater when it was hit by a tornado, like all of those things. It built up so much steam, and it was such a blockbuster hit. Do I think that this one can capture the awe and attention that the original did? No, because I don't think that it was really doing anything that original. Likewise, Helen Hunt was already a pretty established actress at the time that she was in the original Twisters, and Bill Paxton had just come off of being in Independence Day. Glen Powell certainly is the star power of this movie, don't get me wrong. And if this movie had come a little bit closer to last year's Transformers Rise of the Beast, I definitely think that perhaps if they had monopolized off of Anthony Ramos's character a little bit more, perhaps something could be done there. But I don't know that enough people are familiar with Daisy Edgar Jones. She's likable enough, but there was not enough appeal or draw, in my opinion. I think they're definitely trying to pull on the fact that they have her kind of styled in the same way to Helen Hunt's character from the original. But for me, while it was a decent experience, it just wasn't anything super thrilling. While I appreciated the opportunity to see it in the theater, and I saw it in Dolby, could have waited at home. Now, that said, there are several moments in the movie where I believe seeing this movie in 4D, if you can afford the 4D experience, are probably going to be phenomenal. With the rain and the wind and the movement of the chairs, I think that would make this an amazing movie-going experience. But just a normal theater experience, I just think that it's really going to be one of those things up to if you just really love this genre of movies, whether or not you're going to want to go see it and whether you'll have a great time with it. I don't see being able to take a large family and everyone getting their needs met. More specifically, they try to do a romance in this movie, but there's this weird love triangle thing that they try to recreate from the original, and it just doesn't feel authentic. I don't feel like they do enough to really flesh out those characters. And if I'm being honest, it's a little problematic for me, the way that they go about it. I'll talk about that more in the spoiler portion of the video, but it just really felt very uncomfortable and not as emotionally connected as the one in the original movie felt. I really felt bad for the characters and the individuals trapped in that love triangle in the first one, because none of them met harm, and it was sad to see kind of the disillusion of one relationship and then the reconnecting of another. But it also felt just very authentic to what we saw in the characters. David Corenswet is also in this movie. He's kind of playing a minor villainous character, but listen, there's no big villain in this movie in the way that Gary Elwes was the villain in the original movie. And I think it's because they fold in character traits of that character into the Tyler character, and so for a while we don't know if he is supposed to be the Cary Elwes or if he's supposed to be the Bill Paxton, and it's soon made clear that he is supposed to be the Helen Hunt character, but also Daisy is also the Helen Hunt character and the Bill Paxton character. It's really like very much where it's like paint by numbers, but oh, let's throw in a twist and let's make this character, this character, this character, this character. And Anthony Ramos ends up being the Cary Elwes kind of character, but then at the same time he ends up being the fiance from the original. Like I said, it is a bit tangled up and a bit convoluted for me. Walking out of the theater, I immediately said that I would give this a 7.5 out of 10. If I were giving this a letterbox rating, I would probably give it a 2.5 stars. But because over here we like to grade on a curve, I'm going to give it a B-. That is where I will end this review portion. But just as a quick note, if you would like to hear spoilers, stick around as I give kind of a minute's worth of spoiler takes and information about the movie if you've already seen it. And if you haven't seen it and you want to go see it for yourself, hit a pin in this video, save it for later, and come back. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button so that you get notified for when I drop other reviews. But let's talk spoilers really quickly. So I felt that the relationship between Anthony Ramos, who played Javier, who was supposed to be Kate's best friend, it seemed very sweet in the beginning. They were reuniting after this tragedy that they faced by losing their friends. I barely noticed that was Kiernan Shipka. I was like, oh wow, okay, she looks unrecognizable in this a little bit. Good for her playing the character of Abby. And then it's clear and evident that Javi has feelings for her, and so being that he is one of the few people of color in the movie, and then that kind of relationship is just kind of ignored for her very quickly falling in love with Tyler, or getting in a relationship with Tyler, even though she knows nothing about that man, and there's nothing super charismatic about him, in my opinion, from a romantic stance. It just felt very awkward and weird. So I would have rather them just not even focus on the romance, because it never felt like it was authentic to the characters themselves. It felt very rushed, and I think the reason why it worked so well in the first movie was because there was this backstory of the characters having been together, so it didn't feel as rushed. These are two characters meeting each other for the very first time, so it feels very rushed, them being together. Also, I did not like the fact that they are making the people of Oklahoma seem super, super stupid this entire movie, where you have Kate and Tyler running around telling everyone how to be safe in a tornado, as though the people in Oklahoma who live in Oklahoma don't know how to be safe during a tornado. It's one thing if we're establishing the fact that the homes and the businesses in Oklahoma are not built to support tornadoes, but then it just felt like they were trying to tell them how to be safe in an area that they've lived in their whole lives. I have been in Oklahoma for quite a number of times, and the minute you go to Oklahoma, you are told by anyone who is from Oklahoma how to be safe in a tornado. Like, it's a very shared knowledge kind of thing. So that just felt very weird. Yeah, the whole side story of like the guy who was funding Anthony Ramos's company, and he was buying out the property, and there was a political or a message about that. It kind of felt like, you know, a little bit of like gentrification, where he's buying up all the properties and the land so he can build these condos in these big expensive neighborhoods, and it's harming the people. It's not helping them get back on their feet, but it's also not touching on, well, how do those people get back on their feet? What are the ramifications of that? That's never touched on. They kept explaining the science to us about tornadoes, which, okay, fine, that is something that you definitely could happen, but it felt like they were explaining it to each other when they were storm chasers, and they would know how that knowledge. There's the only time that felt authentic was when you had the character of Ben, I think his name was, who was the British guy who was coming over to do an expose on Tyler. And they're explaining it to him, which feels authentic because he wouldn't know. Explaining it to other storm chasers definitely felt like this is something that they would know. So it would have been really clever, perhaps, if between Javier and Kate, when they're riding together, if they had someone riding with them who was inexperienced and they themselves was learning. But it just felt very much like they were just talking to the camera a lot and kind of breaking the fourth wall, educating the audience on how storms are created and how they work and how they operate. There was also all of these little tie-ins to the original movie, like the Dorothy, so then they played all that and used the lion and the scarecrow. But I felt like it was a missed opportunity to, one, include Helen Hunt's character in this movie. We make her the mom, make her the aunt, something. And then to kind of not acknowledge that they were the ones who created Dorothy. So where are we getting Dorothy if that was kind of a new technology that was being created in the first movie? Why are we not ever talking about that technology as being like something that was passed down from those characters? So that just felt very weird that they never mentioned that. The best sequence to me that was like the most thrilling was the one when they were in the pool and they go to the pool for safety. I thought that was very smart and very cool. I wasn't really invested in the movie theater sequence. They were trying to recreate the drive-in theater experience from the first movie, and that's another thing. It was just too many beats that were one for one the same as the original movie. The two tornadoes, so the twins, the chickens, and the replacement of the cows. It just felt like if you were going to do a movie with that many beats similar to the original, why not play up by having members of the original cast in this movie? And I was trying to think if they had one or two members that were in this movie that from the original, but I don't think they did. They had new cast. There was a lot of cast. There were people I didn't remember their names, but it seemed like they had speaking roles, so it just felt like it wasn't really well done. If I was Anthony Ramos and I am getting ready to be in a Marvel project and I'm coming off of being a lead in an action movie, there's no way I'm taking this role. So I can only imagine that he took this role before Transformers Rise of the Beast, and or he thought that his role was going to be bigger and maybe it changed when they added Glen Powell into this, because I definitely do not see a world in which you take someone who was just in the big Transformers movie, even though that had mixed reviews. I think most people agreed that it was a pretty decent project, and then make him the supporting actor to Glen Powell and Daisy Edgar Jones. It just seemed very much like, okay, but this is the person who she's grown up with. There's also this weird thing where they were talking about her being in New York, and I just kept thinking Anthony Ramos is New York accent is so thick and heavy. How are they not? They're making it seem like he's from Oklahoma, but then at times they're saying it like she's the one from Oklahoma and he's not from Oklahoma, even though they're at times alluding to maybe that they grew up together. It was just very weird. And I was like, why not just make him someone who was from New York, who loved storms and decided to go to school for this, and they met in college, because that New York accent was thick and heavy, baby, I'm telling you. So yeah, just, it was a little disappointing, I will say, because it just felt like such a repeat. And I just think I didn't want to see a one-for-one be exactly the same. I either wanted to see it be an homage to the original, really lean into that and be a true sequel to the original. Give me something new, something fresh, something different, not have the exact same story beats. I thought the original, the entry sequence was really well done, and that was probably the most heartfelt moment. But I just felt like these characters were very flat. We don't get to know them. I didn't feel like I was truly invested in their story, and so that's why it gets such a low rating for me. Let me know in the comments what you thought about Twisters 2024, and I will see you in the next video. Toodles!